zero res.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for sunny skies today with a high near 44. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 27. And Wednesday, partly sunny with a high around 38. Catch Caleb Heron at the Fillmore in Minneapolis on March 9th. One of America's top gay comedians, Caleb brings his So True tour to town with sharp humor and big laughs. Plus, he's joined by special guests. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com for Caleb Heron live at the Fillmore March 9th. That's Ticketmaster.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and streaming live right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TheGailey This is The Gailey Show. I'm your host, JP Debragosian. Joining me in studio is our executive producer, Jim Pounds.
Hey, all.
And in the control room today is Patrick. Hey, Patrick.
How's it going?
It is I was saying to you, Patrick, before the show started, I don't even know how to keep up with all of the news that's going on here.
No, totally not. And my thought today is it's 45 degrees outside in January, and I'm kind of conflicted. Like, I know it's wrong and it should not be that, but it's so nice at the same time, and I'm not going to not enjoy it.
Well, I think that's I agree, and I think that's just because it was like -10 for so long that we're like, oh, thank gosh, a break. But yeah, 45. Okay. Well, our call-in number is 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, or you can chat with us on our YouTube live stream. What is on the show today? Later, at the half-hour break, Rochester Public Schools Superintendent Pekel will join us to talk about the decision to place the LGBTQ children's picture book, The Rainbow Parade, on restriction in their elementary school libraries. Breaking news is that Trump has reinstituted his ban on transgender people from serving in the military. On tomorrow's show, White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, Christopher Kane, will be back here with us. He's covering that story as we speak, so stay tuned for that and more. As you can imagine, there's a lot happening in DC now, so we're very lucky that Christopher is going to take some time to talk with us about it and his reporting. I will say about the ban, the GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders, or GLAD, and the National Center for Lesbian Rights have already filed a federal lawsuit in the U.S. District Court, the District of Columbia one, challenging the ban. So we'll see where that goes. In the first administration, we were pretty successful on the legal side of things and blocking that from going into effect. So we'll see what happens this time around. Also, breaking news, Twin Cities Pride Amplified, their show has released an episode today. Now, normally they have their episodes on Saturday afternoons, their weekly show at 3 o'clock, obviously hosted by the executive director of Twin Cities Pride, Andy Otto, and co-hosted by his executive assistant, Rena. They have released an episode today, though, that you can listen to on am950radio.com because they're talking about their decision to part ways with Target. So if you want to hear about that and that decision making, and as I understand it, you'll hear more about this in that episode when you listen to it either today, or obviously you can listen to it in their regular time slot at 3 o'clock this Saturday. But as I understand it, Target was giving $50,000 a year, or most recently, to Pride, and they opened a GoFundMe or similar type of a page, Twin Cities Pride did, and as I understand it, they've raised over $60,000 or thereabout right now. So they've made up what Target would have given and then some. So you can hear all about it on that special episode that you can listen to right now on am950radio.com. Today is also an election day. Jim, you want to tell us about it?
Well, this is Senate District 60, Kerry Ziedzek's former seat, and that election, so it's very important to hold our majority in the state Senate, is today, and so we urge you to get out and vote. It's a heavily Democratic district, but I wouldn't count on that. I'd get out and vote. It's our responsibility.
Well, also, it shows a statement of how we feel about what's happening at the legislature and what the GOP is doing. So a big turnout rate today if you live in Northeast. Really big deal. Send a message to the legislature. Our main topic for the first half of the show, we're going to be talking about some Unsettling reports, new reports about the challenges facing queer youth in this country. And we want you to join the conversation on how we, as the queer and allied community, can and should respond. Our call-in number is 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, or you can chat with us on our YouTube live stream. A new report is out from the Trevor Project and the Movement Advancement Project, and they found that 266,000 queer youth from the ages of 13 to 24 have relocated to more inclusive parts of the country, fleeing red states. This data came from the Trevor Project's 2024 U.S. National Survey on mental health of LGBTQ plus young people. And then the Movement Advancement Project, they have their own data set because they track anti-LGBTQ policies and laws in all of the 50 individual states. So the study found that 20% of LGBTQ youth nationwide lived in a state with low overall LGBTQ policies. These are negative policies on the book. So 1 in 5 live in one of these states. Nearly 1 in 5 of the survey respondents, trans and non-binary, 13 to 24-year-olds, have had to leave their state, either permanently or temporarily, to access health care for themselves. Now, as you can imagine, reading this report, and it's good to see data, proving what we knew. Queer people, young people, 13 to 24, living in states with robust LGBTQ plus protections, said that recent politics were less likely to negatively impact their well-being. Obviously, if you're in Minnesota, if you're in California, if you're in Massachusetts, New York, etc., you know that you've got state level protections protecting you.
States' rights.
States' rights. We're going to see how far we can push states' rights. Just have states' rights. The red states, the conservatives, MAGA gets to have states' rights all the time. Well, we're going to see what the courts say about whether we get to have states' rights as well. But it's great to actually see that, notion, what we know to be true, is actually backed up by the data. This is important, though, because the ACLU is tracking 245 anti-LGBTQ bills across the country, state level, that have already been introduced so far into 2025. Let me check the date. Oh, yeah, it's only January 28th, and they've managed to do this. Fun fact, there were 2 bills introduced in Minnesota. However, they were held invalid because they were in the House when the GOP was playing make-believe, that they had a quorum and could do whatever they wanted without any of the DFLers there. And last Friday, the Supreme Court intervened and said, no, you don't have a quorum. You only have 67 votes. The Constitution says you need 68. And so anything that you have done up to this point is held invalid. So those 2 bills are gone. And I love when you go to the page where that bill originally was listed, it now says, I closed the tab. It has a statement in there saying that on last Friday, they listed the date, the Minnesota Supreme Court held invalid everything that had happened prior to this date. So this, this file is no longer, this House file is no longer available to view. So, hey, small mercies, right? We also see this got buried, I guess, because there were, as I'm trying to go through everything that he's been doing over the past 10 days, the executive orders that he was issuing, a lot of that came from actually rescinding Biden's comprehensive executive order that had a lot of protections for folks in that. So Trump added a few of his own, obviously we know that, but he also rescinded the Biden one. And that included getting rid of protections for queer kids in foster care and in shelters. Now, when we look at the data, I know that can get you. I love being a wonk. I have a policy degree, so we're gonna You're going to bear with me for being wonky. But when you look at the data, queer kids are overrepresented in the number of students, or kids rather, students that are in foster care and shelters, particularly around houseless children, right? They're overrepresented, which means what you would expect the total, but we would expect maybe 10 to 12% of youth who are houseless would be queer, because that's the number of the population that they are, of all kids. But actually those numbers can be as high as 30 or 40%. So when we see that he is rolling back those protections, practically speaking, what does that mean? Well, we see that as Biden's executive order was for these kids to be placed in homes that were supportive of them, right? So they wouldn't be put into MAGA homes where, they would be punished for being queer.
So the anti-human agenda rolls on.
And when Biden issued that executive order, of course, immediately Texas had to run in there and file suit to try to get it overturned. But now here we are with the MAGA president rescinding that, which is just really everything that has happened so far has been very, very cruel. Decidedly so. I mean, that's their entire movement, MAGA. I mean, their entire MO, their entire platform is basically, how can we not make lives better for Americans? How do we not bring down egg prices for real? How do we not bring down taxes? It's what can we do that causes the most harm against the people that we don't like? That is basically their agenda. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. What are your thoughts and your take on this particular issue, what we're dealing with, and how we can support queer kids as they're going through these issues right now? I know go ahead, Jim.
I have a question. You mentioned 266,000 LGBT youth, I think is what you said. Does that mean that there are families attached to those youth that also presumably have relocated? Or is that 266,000 people that have relocated no matter whether they were LGBT or not? Do you know?
That is a great question. So the number that I see there is 266. So I imagine, because the respondents are 13 to 24-year-olds, that we could see the folks that are over 18 and plus maybe going solo. We could actually also see that for kids who have been kicked out of their home. If they're 15 or 16, they could also be doing that without their families. But I would assume those 13 to 18-year-olds would most likely be moving with their families.
With their family. So it's an even larger relocation of people out of red America.
Yeah. We are going to take a short break here. You can listen and watch our past episodes on our YouTube channel or everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you missed our conversation last week with Reverend Harry Hardigan, check it out. For now, we will see you after this break.
Connections radio show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Progressive change doesn't just happen. It takes dedication and a lot of hard work. 25 years ago, the DataBank pioneered a new generation of software tools for progressive organizations here in Minnesota. Since then, thousands of organizations have used the DataBank to create progressive change. Today, the DataBank continues to help progressive organizations like AM 950. To have the DataBank help your organization build capacity and create more change, text CHANGE to 612-540-0500 or go to thedatabank.com. The DataBank, a quarter century of dedication and hard work for progressive organizations.
Queermunity, the new LGBTQ cafe, social club, and resource center is now open in the heart of uptown Minneapolis. Dine in at our full-service cafe, rent a co-working desk or one of our spacious offices. Did I mention our program and social events calendar is stacked? None of this is possible without our members. Our basic membership plan earns you up to $120 annually that you can redeem in the cafe or on parking. Plus, enjoy a 10% discount at the cafe or on space rentals. Also, our community partners provide our members with exclusive discounts, and the savings only go up from there with our higher membership plans. We've never had an LGBTQ resource center that offers a dedicated space where queer folks can go to whenever they need to feel safe, seen, and loved. Your membership keeps Queermunity open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and provides needed resources to members of the community regardless of income. The Queermunity needs you. Become a member today at queermunitymn.com. Mention AM950 at the cafe register for a free beverage with entree purchase.
Whether you rent or own a home, we all likely have nightmare stories about home maintenance, or what I like to call home cringe moments. Join me, your host, Katie Shahan, for the Yarlow Home Cringe Show. See what home cringe-worthy stories we have for you each week as we talk with local home service pros. Learn best practices for winterizing your home or what to look for after a hailstorm. Listen to the Yarlow Home Cringe Show every Sunday at 2 p.m. or on your favorite podcast app.
If you go to shoprainbow.rd.com, you will find an amazing variety of adult novelties. Literally thousands of items that you can peruse in the privacy of your home and have shipped to your door. Plus, in the store, you can find swimwear, casual wear, underwear, everywhere. Rainbow Road is located at 109 West Grand Street near Loring Park. Gift cards are available for the hard to shop for. Go to shoprainbow.rd.com. Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I'm JP Derbogosian. Our call in number 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, or you can chat with us on our live stream. We're talking about some really unsettling numbers and reports coming out from the Trevor Project and the Movement Advancement Project, as well as data being reported out from the ACLU of the number of anti-LGBTQ bills that have been passed. Not passed, introduced so far into 2025, and that number is 245. And, you know, this is why we can't rely on executive orders, you know, and yes, that it was amazing that Biden did that, but he had to do that because when we had control of the House and the Senate, for his first 2 years, they didn't get a law passed. And so we keep seeing this, yo-yo effect, back and forth. And we just, this is the thing, though, that we want to accomplish on this show with all the folks that we're talking to here. We will be back in power. We will be back in power. Democracy is going to make a comeback. The things that they're doing, we know what they're doing right now, are going to be detrimental to the people, all people of this country. We know it. We see it coming. Everything that we, all DFLers, have known all along, all of us on the left have seen, took him at his word, and now he's implementing. We know what the effects of this are going to be. We know that tariffs are terrible, right? What I'm going with that is I hope that 2026, obviously there'll be a lot of work that needs to go into that, but 2026 is going to have to be a comeback year. It has to be a comeback year. But once we get into power, we need to do what the DFL did here in Minnesota in the last biennium and said, we're going for it. And it doesn't matter that we've only got one vote. We're going for it. We know what we are about. We know the values that we have. We know the legislation that we are going to get out there, and we're going to do it day one. And look at the transformational session that they had there, biennium that they had there. And they did it so structurally, so systematically, not in getting it done, but the laws that were passed were so structural in nature that it's going to be very, very hard to undo that. And that's what we need. Obviously, in 2026, we can get control of the House and we can get control of the Senate. It'd be great to have veto-proof majorities in them. Then we could really sort of take back control and put things in order. Obviously, that's a longer shot to get to 60 votes in the, or no, a veto majority would be 67, wouldn't it, in the Senate? But
it's the difference between professionalism and lack of professionalism. When you put out an edict from the temple that says we're just suspending all the federal grants, I mean, that's so chaotic for millions of people to deliberately destabilize everybody like that. Their so-called allies, the people they don't like, the people who are indifferent to them, is governing by chaos. This is somebody that is not only is he not capable, most of the people in his administration are not capable, and we're seeing evidence of it. To pull us out of the World Health Organization and say, no, you're not going to get that information about threats to world health, is putting every single human being in this country at grave risk, deliberately, out of some hubris, instead there's no sort of rational thought going on there. It's just grandstanding like a tabloid newspaper.
And the people that often bear the brunt of this are kids.
Yep.
So when we see this
Poor
new data out, 266,000 LGBTQ youth aged 13 to 24
Yep.
have had to leave their states to move to more inclusive ones. When we see that 1 in 5 are living in a state that has very negative LGBTQ laws and lack of protections, and how that negatively impacts their health, behavioral and physical health. I mean, when you see 1 in 5 trans and non-binary 13 to 24-year-olds having to leave their state to access health care, I mean, it's just it.
Well, there are 19 great states for you to relocate to, so you've lots of options, all around, and some large, some small, and some metro, and some not. And that is going to hurt the red states like they cannot even imagine. They're going to get rid of a lot of the workforce through this immigration nonsense, and then they're going to lose a lot of their people that choose to not be there anymore, and it's going to hurt them, businesses, like you wouldn't believe.
But this is also why, when we're looking at LGBTQ policy and politics, we have to have that federal level analysis.
Yes.
We cannot sit there and say that we're surrendering the Senate seats and all of these different states, surrendering Montana, surrendering Kansas, surrendering Indiana, but it's just nothing will ever change. We'll never get we thought about that out of Georgia, and we saw the changes there. But if you're somebody that, on our side, that is talking about advancing structural support across the country for queer youth, we need to be talking about a national strategy that gets that going forward. And I know it's really easy for me to just say that, but this is the type of conversations that we need to be having over the next year and a half before the election season really starts in earnest. We need to have that national strategy. We have to have the policies ready to go, and we need to have the strategy ready to go. And we need to be talking about this as a community to get this going and to get this started. And we have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of ideas, and we have a lot of great ideas, and some of them already passed here in Minnesota. The ban on conversion therapy, that should happen nationally. A ban on book banning, that should happen nationally.
Of course.
We have these protections for queer kids not being placed in households that are going to punish them for being queer. We everything, frankly, in that Biden executive order is what we should be doing in legislation when we take back control of Congress.
Well, there was one other interesting development that I just want to mention really quickly. A January 6th person that was given a pardon has said, I reject the pardon, which I didn't know they had the ability to reject a pardon. He's up in Vermont, I believe. He's now a recovering alcoholic. He said, what I did was wrong. I don't deserve to be pardoned. And he's rejected the pardon, which I thought, that's what integrity looks like. So props to him. I don't have his name right in front of me, but well done. I think he's also gay, which is why I'm bringing him up on the Gailey Show.
That was, we are going to take a break here. Be sure to connect with our sponsors and advertisers who not only make this program possible, but help us bring progressive news and radio to the state of Minnesota. We will be back with Superintendent Dr. Pekel, rather. Apologies. I'll get that right after the break. We'll be talking about the Rainbow Parade book now on restriction. You're listening to AM 950 KTNF.
Mornings can be tough, unless, of course, you're listening to The Stephanie Miller Show every weekday morning from 8 to 11 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, weekdays at 5 p.m. On our show, you'll hear about Native issues like treaties, protecting Mother Earth, and holding our elected officials accountable. Weekly correspondents like Dr. Stately, State Senator Mary Kunesh, Robert Lilligren, and Bob Blake update us with the latest news from Turtle Island. Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Listen weekdays at 5 p.m. or watch the show on Native Roots Radio social media accounts. Ho-wah!
Hey, it's Freddie Bell, host of New Beginnings, designed for those of us more seasoned, I'll say, with informative talk on everything from health, finance, local and regional news, volunteerism, spirituality, and even a bit of humor tossed in. So if you're proud to be a more seasoned listener, tune in to New Beginnings Sunday afternoons at 1 right here on the progressive voice of Minnesota, AM 950.
Did you know Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken airs 5 nights a week at 10 p.m.? That's 5 nights of talking about ghosts, ufology, Bigfoot, and
I am not hearing you. I wonder if there's anything I need to do. Are you hearing me?
I am.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, you can hear me.
I can.
Great. And we can hear you. Everything sounds good.
Great.
So thank you for joining us today. You did not have to do that. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm just going to grab some water really quick in case I need it.
Yeah.
All right, can you hear each other? Because we got to get back on.
Yes.
All right, thanks. Sorry.
Curl up in front of a fire, it's primordial, the way it touches both the animal and the human. We know that fire reaches deep into the heart and soul. Let us show you how. We have over 35 working units on display here in Minneapolis. We are located at the east end of Riverside Avenue at 2901 East Franklin. From I-94, take the Riverside Avenue exit. Find us also online at woodlandstoves.com. Let us help you make a fireplace part of your life.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for sunny skies today with a high near 44. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 27. And Wednesday, partly sunny with a high around 38. Grab a tray at Cafe Latte's Cafeteria and select from a wide variety of soups and sandwiches. The bakery has fresh baked bread daily, along with cakes and more. And the pizza and wine gourmet pizzas that pair perfectly with their 30-plus wines by the glass. Located off Victoria and Grand, more at cafelatte.com.
You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Broadcasting live from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and streaming live on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thegailey-show. This is The Gailey Show. I'm your host, JP Derbragosian. Here on the show, we talk about the issues obviously facing the LGBTQ community with progressive analysis, yes, but part of that includes having conversations with friends that we may disagree with. And recently, the LGBTQ children's picture book, The Rainbow Road by Emily Nielsen, was removed from the shelves at the Rochester Public Schools elementary school libraries, but I want to fact check some media reports out there and ourselves. This children's book was not banned. Rather, it was put on restricted access due to nudity and adult themes. We're going to get into that in a second. Children can check out the picture book, but only with an adult. And we are covering the story and the larger theme of book bans and book restrictions from as many angles as possible. So folks listening to the show know that yesterday I talked with Andrew Frisbee, who's the collection development librarian at North Liberty Library. We had to reschedule our interview with Rochester Pride, but stay tuned for that. And we're also working with Minnesota State Senator Swarzinski to have him join us to talk about last year's ban on book bans law to better understand what is that and how does that work. But joining me right now is Superintendent of Rochester Public Schools, Dr. Kent Pekel. Prior to serving as superintendent, Dr. Pekel spent 9 years as president and CEO of Search Institute, an internationally recognized not-for-profit organization that conducts applied research on education and youth development. Superintendent Pekel, sir, I want to thank you for joining me here today. You took the time out of a busy schedule, and I want to express my gratitude for that.
I'm grateful for the invitation. I met with the folks from Rochester Pride last Friday too to continue the discussion. It's a really important one to have.
Fantastic. So my first question for you is around the process of how you and the school system, Rochester Public Schools, came to the decision to place the Rainbow Parade under restriction. Process is important. I think a lot of folks think that these things happen behind closed doors. So can you walk us through the process that you all have there at Rochester Public Schools?
I can. I need to say at the outset of the process, though, especially because of the focus of your show, that this book, I did not make the difficult decision to use your term, restrict access to the book because of any LGBTQ plus theme at all. It was the images, which I know we'll talk about, but if this had been a book that showed those images about a straight person at Mardi Gras, which is possible because it was a rainbow parade, I would have made the same decision. And so that's really, really important. There was a book on the open shelves of a media center. A first grader checked it out. The first grader did not receive any guidance or direction in checking out that book, as is normal in one of our media centers. I'm proud that we have got media centers where we expect every elementary student in Rochester to check out books. The student took it home, and when they asked questions of their parent, the parent was not only unable to answer those questions, but was quite concerned about not only their child having the book, but all children having the book. And so they put forward a request to remove it. We had a committee, mostly of media specialists, but also a couple teachers, staff person, a community member, and administrator, look at the book, and they recommended, as per our process, to keep it on the open shelves. I met with them a couple of times, and especially with the media specialist in the school where the book was located. And I was frankly looking for the outset from what I finally landed on, which was that it's not on the open shelves, but that teachers, media specialists can share the book with kids. So they're there both to be sure that they think a first grader or a kindergartner is ready for the book, and then to answer questions if they have them, and then to talk to a parent if there is concern. And so our policy gives me the authority, because I am charged with 17,500 kids and how they react, to overrule the committee, which I did not do lightly, and I don't want to make a practice or a habit. And the committee felt it should be on the open shelves, full stop. I've subsequently authorized its use with adult guidance and direction for the purposes that I mentioned. And I understand their perspective. The book, I would have read the book to my kids, no question. But for some of our students as young as 5 and 6 to encounter some of the images without any guidance or direction was the place where I came down at a different place from our committee.
So questions that we've been fielding here that I'd like to ask to you, which I'm sure Rochester Pride put to you, is that this picture book was written and illustrated by an author who is an illustrator and animator for Disney and Netflix. The book was published by Dial Books, which is a division of Penguin Random House, one of the biggest publishers in the world. It received star reviews from the 4 major book reviewers, Kirkus, School Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, book list. All of these folks are not in the business of producing children's books that will just be labeled with nudity and adult themes and put under restrictions. So help me understand the disconnect between all those folks and yourself on this concept of nudity and adult themes.
Those folks aren't in charge of a school district that is privileged to serve an extraordinary diversity of young people. Not only were
but their job is to provide books to your students, 17,000 of them.
And we do. And in fact, I've made a provision where I think this book can be provided, and where there are other LGBTQ themed books, including ones that depict pride parades in our media centers. I would staunchly oppose those removal. There's an image of a presumably female backside, and then a topless, what looked to be female breasts. And I have to be honest, we got into deep metaphysical discussions as to whether that's someone who's trans and therefore biologically male and not female. They look like female breasts to a first grader without question. That remains illegal in Minnesota. We could disagree about the merits of that. I don't have a perspective on it. It was that image that was relevant. Subsequent to that, the fact that there's an image of two guys in leather, one with a dog collar around his neck and a leash, also became an issue. I chose not to make that the criteria for my book because I actually think, A, that's subjective. B, I worried that it would be interpreted as being sort of about, issues of sexuality or gender identity. And I thought the nudity was sufficient. Obviously, folks disagreed with me on that. But that image has also gotten a lot of subsequent discussion. A columnist for the Star Tribune who independently heard about this, wrote about it. I felt the nudity was the most objective standard. And again, I also talked to the media specialists about, is there any way in a media center to have an age differentiation? Like, this is an elementary school, so like 4th and 5th graders. And they said, nope, there's not. And so this is not a hypothetical. It was a first grader who didn't have a support and understanding and didn't have a family situation to help explain that book. And that is an important part of the puzzle. I have no doubt that other kids would benefit greatly from this book. And it's why I'm hoping with appropriate adult guidance, they'll continue to be able to access it.
Unpack for me what that means, the appropriate adult guidance. Like, how does a child find this book? And what is the how do they know it exists and discover it? And then how do they check it out?
They don't now, because this is, again, I've learned a lot about how our media centers work in Rochester through this experience. I've been here as superintendent for 3.5 years. There is no like forbidden bookshelf, which I actually appreciate. I wasn't advocating for that. So there's what's called the professional collection or the professional shelves. And that's where the media specialist keeps books that are not directly open, and they can be available to kids when they're doing guided reading, when the kid says, I'm wanting something to read, and they're pointing it out. Similarly, and I don't know that this has happened in Rochester yet, but I sent out some guidance last week that addressed it. We also have classroom libraries and classrooms that are not our curriculum, but it's something a teacher maintains. And similarly, I said, should a teacher want to have this particular book there? Similarly, it shouldn't just be on the open classroom library where any student grabs it, but if that teacher is confident that it's a good fit for the kids that they're working with and they can answer those questions, then they can do it. And if there weren't images that do constitute nudity in the book, I would not have felt the need to put in place those requirements. But it's a public school where we're talking about 5 and 6 year olds. So I understand those book reviews came down in a different place. It's a brilliant book, and it's like Where's Waldo? Kids are looking for those images. It's why it's such a good book. They're going to find those images, and they're going to have reactions to those images. And something being developmentally appropriate means the student, a very young student, can make sense of, at an age-appropriate way, the images that they're finding. And that was not what happened last spring in Rochester, and it's what I'm trying to have happen should this book be of interest to kids in the future.
So were there lots of this? Because it sounds like there was one child with one parent who was uncomfortable with the situation, who now gets to tell 17,500 or 17,400 and whatever other number, I can't remember the number, that they can't access it the same way that you can other books.
Absent some adult guidance, yes, that's the case. But it's because there was, I stumble every time because I can't believe I'm here, having to talk about the specific nudity, in the book. It's like I'm some kind of a something out of a, I don't know, the Music Man movie or something against all like pornographic images or something. We're talking about first graders and kindergartners here. And so that was the standard on which I needed to make my decision. I couldn't extrapolate from it. So yes, there was an understandable sense that my decision may not have affirmed the life experiences of some kids and families who are gay, lesbian, trans, or others, that's the furthest thing from my intent. I understand why some people may have interpreted it that way. I think there's some nuance here that I'm asking folks to appreciate. And I should say also, I've had people both within the district and in the Rochester LGBTQ community say, yeah, there's nothing fundamental about being naked at a pride parade about my sexual orientation. If you were saying you can't have my two mommies or my two daddies, that is a fundamental threat to my lived experience. And I completely agree. I would never ask for that kind of a book to be removed.
Clearly, there's a difference of opinion between your committee, 10-person committee, that voted 9-1 to keep the book without restrictions, and yourself. When it's 9-1 and these are experts, why intervene?
Well, first of all, with respect, a subset of them were media specialists. They have a license. I have a license. We have been leaders in the last 2 years in Rochester, in Minnesota, in inclusion for transgender and gender expansive students. I personally issued that guidance way before the school board took it up. The Biden administration's rule that a lot of us were depending on to give federal support has now been struck down. We are not going to change our guidance here. I got a ton of pushback, in development of that procedure. As I did that, I met with people from all across this community who had grave concerns about shared bathrooms, shared locker rooms. And I said, well, I'm sorry, we're actually going to have kids express their gender identity, but we understand your concerns and we are going to treat your children. If you're concerned about this, we are going to care for them and we respect that, but we are going to affirm those kids' ability. So I was coming off that experience to this issue, and my having given assurance to these folks who have very deep feelings about those issues that we are going to be inclusive of those students, but we are not creating situations in which their students are going to be harmed or compromised. And I'm proud to say we've done that without exception. So I had that experience. The members of that committee didn't have that experience. I mean, there's a reason for a superintendent's license, which is that I have to consider the implication for 17,300 specifically kids and this incredible diversity that we have in Rochester. And what is age appropriate given the experience kids are opening a book, and the experience of a media specialist who is focused on one book in that media center, at a given time. So
does that mean that, that suggests then that are you going to then start reviewing all of these book challenges?
Absolutely not. This happened because there was a parent. I would review it insofar as I have to transmit the committee's approval. I spent a good amount of time with both the committee members and then actually the media specialist in the school where it happened was not on the committee. So I spent a good amount of time talking with her. I respect their opinion, and it is my strong hope that I won't have to overrule them again.
I hate to interrupt you. We're at time. This is what we have to have is difficult conversations. I want to thank you, Superintendent Pekel. Would you be able to come back after the break?
I have got just a few minutes. I actually got a community group waiting outside my door, so I don't want to make it wait too long.
You can go to that. To that. Thank you for joining us here. Clearly, the conversation is going to keep happening. For right now, we're going to take a break. We'll see you. Lots still to get to on The Gailey Show. You're listening to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts.
So come check out their pizza and wine bar, or get a treat from the bakery made fresh daily. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
At Queer Immunity, savor our seasonal menus from our chef, June Day, a James Beard Awards semifinalist. We feature locally sourced foods grown and produced by queer and BIPOC farmers. A full-service cafe offering your favorite cold brew coffees, hot teas, cider spritzes, and our very own house-made chai lattes. Start your day with our smoked bacon and egg breakfast sandwiches served on a biscuit with chipotle mayo and cheddar cheese. Vegan? Try our vegan sausage, egg, and cheese. For lunch, pair our seasonal salads and soups with a caprese panini served on Rose Street baguettes. Try one of our chickpea salad sandwiches, or enjoy the comfort of our grilled cheese with mouth-watering provolone, cheddar, and Gruyere melting on Rose Street breads. We serve sweet and savory pastries, and check out our new bar menu featuring local beer, wine, and custom double hard seltzers. Mention AM 950 at the cafe register for a free beverage with entree purchase. The Queer Community Cafe is open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. More info at queercomunitymn.com. If you go to shoprainbowrd.com, you will find an amazing variety of adult novelties. Literally thousands of items that you can peruse in the privacy of your home and have shipped to your door. Plus, in the store, you can find swimwear, casual wear, underwear, everywhere. Rainbow Road is located at 109 West Grand Street near Loring Park. Gift cards are available for the hard to shop for. Go to shoprainbowrd.com.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
Are your remote workers putting your company at risk? Not sure what steps to take to secure your data? Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide with the 5 steps to securely work from home. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I'm your host, JP Darabagosia. Well, I want to thank Superintendent Pekel for joining us here on the show. We have to have difficult conversations with our friends, and it is interesting to hear. Not just interesting. I mean, it's heartening to hear all of the work that they were doing, that he is leading and doing for students in the school system. Obviously, we disagree on the issue of the Rainbow Parade, but there's a lot of what he was doing for the school system that I agree with, which makes this decision about the Rainbow Parade sort of baffling to me. But, you know, I know that Rochester Pride is doing great work down there, and we'll continue the conversations with him, and we will be having Rochester Pride here on the show, not just to talk about the Rainbow Parade, though. You know, we are going to be expanding our coverage throughout the state of Minnesota. So we will start bringing regional coverage to this show, to the Gailey Show, so that we can talk about and be very clear about the issues that are happening throughout the state of Minnesota. And there also may be, you know, talks about taking our show. We are planning on doing this, to taking our shows to other markets as well. Throughout the country. And so you can stay tuned for that as we go along through 2025 of being able to bring that presence, that connective tissue. If we can be that here on the Gailey Show, that connective tissue for queer communities throughout the country. We are one of the only daily LGBTQ shows, news and talk shows in the country. And so what we can do to help connect folks, connect ideas, and have difficult conversations when they need to be had. I think that that's really important, and to support those who are having those conversations as well. Obviously, there was a lot to get to today about that new reporting for queer youth. It's been on my mind a lot, and yesterday's conversation with Andrew. Tomorrow, actually on Thursday, we're going to be talking with Chris Tompkins, who is a therapist and an author who wrote the book Raising LGBTQ Allies, which is a parenting guidebook for dealing with issues like we talked about here today. And Chris is going to have some really interesting counterpoints. We didn't actually talk about the Rainbow Parade, but we were talking about age-appropriate conversations of when to start talking about queer and trans identities and supporting raising allies, but also laying groundwork, how parents can lay the groundwork for their kids in the event that they will come out in the short term or the midterm periods of their lives, and how to be prepared for that. So stay tuned. On Tuesday we'll be having that. Will be part of our Thinking Clearly, Thinking Queerly episode that we have every week. We also have tomorrow, I'm really looking forward to talking to Christopher Kane from the Washington Blade. It's hard for me to keep my head around everything that's going on right now. Like, I write 10 things down that we want to talk about on the show, and then 40 other things happen. So I'm glad I knew today. I'm like, okay, Christopher's going to be here. Some of this we can get into him because he's reporting on it at, from DC on the ground, so to speak. I'm also excited that tomorrow we're going to have Joseph Leza. Author Joseph Leza will be returning to the show. His book came out last year, I Am Not Fine, and we are actually a year or so ago. Time is meaningless now, but I'm really happy to have Joseph returning to the show to talk about recent work that he's been doing, essays around job hunting in the United States, queer love, and what that is in the 2020s, as it were. And there's also really really great essay, one of them, that is about Danish architecture. So I'm really looking forward to having him here. And apparently he was recently voted or declared to have the best hair on the internet. I take issue with that. Not that mine is any better, but we'll see. We'll see what he shows up with. His hair. No pressure whatsoever about that. But yes, so we have that to look forward to tomorrow. And I want to hear from you as well. I want to hear what you're dealing with. You can connect with me on our Blue Sky. We are at thegailyshow.org. Blue Sky, where you can talk to us about what you're feeling right now, what you're seeing happening in the world. There's so much going on there, and this really, we want to be a platform for spreading those ideas. I know that Jim and I were talking about this earlier. The MAGA agenda is going to be detrimental to the community. We know that. I'm not saying anything that you don't already know. What we do need to have prepared is what we're going to do when we reclaim power again in 26, in 2028. And I think that can't just be around a set of policies, though. I think what I was saying earlier is that we need to know what we're going to do in terms of legislation and policies, yes. But what is the value that binds all of us together on the left? Whether that is from, our center-left folks to our, democratic socialists, who are basically our FDR folks. When you look at Bernie Sanders, when you look at Alexia Ocasio-Cortez, these are not far left people. These are folks in the tradition of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who served for 4 terms. So nothing that they're saying is about overthrowing capitalism. That would be, worker owned and no private property. That's when we're talking, when you start talking about the far left, that's what we're talking about. We don't have a far left in this country. So what is that value system? And I think the Harris-Walz campaign last year, when they were talking about freedom, could be a value that we are using to connect ourselves together. That freedom to read the books that we want to read, the freedom to love who we want to love, the freedom to get the healthcare that we need in our own state, not having to travel 300 miles, whether that is a queer person trying to get healthcare, whether that is a person who is pregnant, and like in the state of Idaho, there are no OBGYNs in the state of Idaho because they don't want to practice there because it is too litigious and they don't want to get on the wrong side of the law. This is what we're talking about. We're going to talk more about it tomorrow. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. We will see you back here tomorrow at 2 p.m.